$4.12. That's what Camilla Peters had left. Not $4 and some optimism. Not $4 and a backup plan. $4.12 and a pink eviction notice that said she had exactly 5 days to come up with $12,200 or lose the only home she and her Aunt Vera had left. Welcome, my beautiful family. Before we begin, please subscribe, like this video, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Your support will help us bring more wonderful stories. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Now, let's get into the story. She stood in McDonald's, staring at the menu like it was a puzzle she needed to solve. Water was free. A value meal was $4.09. That left 3 cents and an empty stomach, until she figured out what came next. But then Camilla saw him. The man in the booth by the window. The one everyone else was pretending not to see. His jacket was torn at the shoulder. His hands were raw from the cold. And he had that look, that hollow, invisible look Camilla recognized because she'd seen it in the mirror that morning. She knew what she was about to do was stupid. She knew it didn't make sense. But Camilla bought the meal anyway, split the burger in half, and walked straight over to the stranger's table. "Here," she said. "You need this." The man looked up at her like she'd just spoken another language. And maybe she had. Because what Camilla didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that the exhausted stranger in front of her was actually Evans Mark, a billionaire who owned half the food supply chain in the city. She had no idea he'd been traveling undercover for months, watching how people treated the hungry. And she definitely didn't realize that her next decision would completely rewrite the trajectory of her life. But before we get to that part, you need to understand something important. To understand why Camilla would give away her last meal, you need to see exactly how bad things had gotten. The room Camilla and Aunt Vera shared was on the 3rd floor of a building that should have been condemned years ago. $16 a week for 120 square feet, 1 hot plate, and a bathroom they shared with 4 other tenants. The walls were so thin, Camilla could hear Mrs. Chen coughing 3 doors down. The radiator only worked when it felt like it. That morning, at 5:47 a.m., Camilla woke to the sound of Aunt Vera's breathing. It had that whistle in it again, the kind that meant her lungs were tightening. The inhaler on the nightstand was nearly empty, maybe 2 doses left, and the pharmacy wanted $60 for a refill. $60 they didn't have. Aunt Vera, 61 years old, lay curled on the narrow mattress they shared, her face pressed into a pillow that had lost its stuffing months ago. She'd raised Camilla since she was 9, after Camilla's mother disappeared and never came back. Vera had worked double shifts at the laundromat for years, until her hands gave out from the arthritis and the chemicals. Now she couldn't grip anything heavier than a coffee cup. Camilla hadn't slept. She'd been doing math in her head all night. Terrible, impossible math. They had $4 left. The eviction notice was dated 3 days ago. Vera needed her inhaler. Camilla needed to eat something before her shift at the grocery store, where she stocked shelves for $9.50 an hour and pretended not to pocket the dented cans they were going to throw away anyway. Most importantly, if they didn't come up with rent money in 5 days, winter would kill them. You don't survive February on the street in this city. Not at Vera's age. Not with her lungs. They'd been 1 paycheck away from homelessness for 6 months. 6 months since Vera's hours got cut. 6 months since Camilla had to choose between paying the electric bill or keeping the room. She'd chosen the room. Now they had neither. Camilla's phone buzzed. A text from her friend Shanice. Girl, where you been? You missed like 3 shifts. Marco's about to fire you. Camilla stared at the message. How could she explain? Hey, Shanice, I've been choosing between feeding my aunt and keeping a roof over our heads, and I'm 23 years old, with no degree and no way out. And sometimes I think about just walking into traffic, because at least then Vera could collect something from my life insurance. She couldn't say that, so she deleted the message without responding. Camilla almost didn't go. She stood at the bus stop at 8:17 a.m., turning the business card over in her fingers. Plain white cardstock. No logo. Just an address printed in simple black ink. 1440 Market Street, 14th floor. And below it, in handwriting that looked rushed, 9 a.m. Evans. It could be anything. A pyramid scheme. A cult recruitment. One of those modeling opportunities that turned out to be something else entirely. Camilla had seen enough scams to know they all started the same way, with a stranger, a promise, and an address that led somewhere you couldn't get out of easily. But Aunt Vera's inhaler had wheezed its last dose that morning. So Camilla got on the bus. Downtown looked like a different city. Glass towers that reflected clouds. People in tailored coats walking fast, like they had places to be and money to get there. Camilla pulled her hood up and kept her head down, counting the stops, watching her phone's battery drop to 14%. What are you doing? She thought. What are you really doing? At 8:54 a.m., she stood in front of 1440 Market Street, staring up at a building so tall she couldn't see the top. The lobby had marble floors, actual marble. A security desk with 3 guards and a scanner system that looked like it belonged in an airport. Camilla almost turned around. Then a security guard looked up. You Camilla Peters? She froze. How did you? You're expected. 14th floor. He gestured toward the elevators. Go ahead. The elevator was the kind that didn't make noise. It just glided upward, like gravity was optional. Camilla watched the numbers climb, 5, 7, 10, 12, and tried to steady her breathing. The doors opened onto a hallway that smelled like expensive coffee and cold air conditioning. A woman in a gray suit stood waiting. Miss Peters? This way, please. She led Camilla through a set of glass doors into a conference room that overlooked half the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows. A long table made of something dark and polished. Leather chairs. A screen on the wall displaying a logo Camilla didn't recognize. Mr. Mark will be with you shortly, the woman said, and disappeared. Camilla stood there, afraid to touch anything. This was wrong. This was all wrong. People like her didn't end up in rooms like this unless something bad was about to happen. The door opened. The man from the booth walked in, and Camilla barely recognized him. Same face, same eyes, but cleaned up. No torn jacket, no chapped hands. He wore a dark sweater and jeans that probably cost more than Camilla's entire wardrobe. Behind him walked a younger man in a button-down shirt, holding a tablet, looking at Camilla like she was a problem that needed solving. Ms. Peters, the man from the booth said, thank you for coming. Camilla's voice came out smaller than she wanted. Who are you? My name is Evans Mark. He gestured toward the other man. This is Jonah Rhee, my chief operating officer. Jonah nodded, but didn't smile. Evans pulled out a chair, motioning for Camilla to sit. She didn't move. I own Mark Foods Logistics, Evans continued, his voice steady, like he was used to delivering information people didn't want to hear. We supply food to about 60% of the restaurants in this city. Grocery stores, cafeterias, hospitals. If it comes on a truck, there's a good chance it's one of ours. Camilla stared at him. You're rich? Yes. And yesterday you were sitting in McDonald's pretending to be homeless. Yes. Poirot. Evans looked at her for a long moment, then tapped the table. The screen on the wall flickered to life. A map of the city appeared, covered in small red and green dots. Heat zones. Data clusters. 3 months ago, Evans said, a video went viral. One of our partner stores refused service to a man who couldn't pay. The manager called the police. The man had a seizure on the sidewalk while waiting for them to arrive. His jaw tightened. He died in the ambulance. Camilla felt something cold settle in her chest. The backlash was immediate, Evans continued. Boycotts, protests, our stock dropped 18% in a week. But the real problem wasn't the PR. The real problem was that I didn't know it was happening. I didn't know how many people were being turned away, how often hunger was treated like a crime. Jonah tapped his tablet. The screen changed. Notes, dates, locations, photos of storefronts. So I started visiting stores, Evans said. Unannounced, undercover. I wanted to see what actually happens when someone walks in with nothing. And? Camilla's voice was barely a whisper. Most people look away, Jonah said flatly. Staff, customers, they pretend not to see. Some stores call security. A few offer water and directions to a shelter. He swiped the screen. A list of names appeared. Camilla's was at the top, highlighted in green. Only 3 people in 47 visits offered food. You were one of them. Camilla shook her head. I don't understand. You're telling me this because your act wasn't just generous, Evans said. It was influential. The cashier added fries without charging. 2 other customers bought extra meals and left them at the counter. You didn't just feed one person. You changed the temperature of the room. Camilla felt dizzy. What do you want from me? Evans leaned forward. I want to build something called Open Table, a program that redesigns how restaurants handle surplus food and meal access. Dignified protocols, staff training, community meal funds, surplus to shelter routing. I can fund it. I can scale it, but I can't build it alone. He paused. I need someone who understands what empty feels like. You want me to, what, consult? I want you to co-architect it, lead it. Camilla laughed. It came out bitter. I stock shelves for $9.50 an hour. I didn't finish college. I don't even have a permanent address. You want me to run a what? A nonprofit? I want you to help create a system, Evans said. Immediate housing for you and your aunt, debt clearance, paid training in logistics, policy design, data collection, a salary while you learn, and a leadership role in something that could change how this city treats hunger. Jonah's voice cut in, sharp. With all due respect, Evans, this is… Jonah, Evans said quietly. Not now. But Camilla heard it. The skepticism, the doubt. Untrained leadership. She could feel Jonah's eyes on her, measuring her, finding her lacking. Why me? Camilla asked. Really? Why not someone with a degree? Someone who knows how this stuff works? Evans met her gaze. Because people with degrees designed the system that's failing. I don't need someone who knows policy. I need someone who knows what it's like to count coins on a counter and decide between food and medicine. His voice softened. You made a choice yesterday that most people wouldn't make. That's the data point I've been looking for. Camilla's hands were shaking. This was insane. This didn't happen. People like her didn't get offers like this. My aunt, she said. Vera. She needs stability first. Medicine. A place that's warm and safe. Done, Evans said. Lease signed today. Medical covered. She'll never have to choose between breathing and eating again. Camilla closed her eyes, felt the weight of 6 months, 6 years, a lifetime of almost enough pressing against her chest. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Evans nodded. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a badge. Temporary laminate, the kind you'd clip to a lanyard. Camilla's name was printed across the top. Below it, Community Director, Acting. Welcome to Open Table, Evans said. Camilla took the badge. Her hands were still shaking, but this time it wasn't from hunger. The distribution center smelled like cardboard and diesel fuel. Camilla stood on the loading dock at 6:00 a.m., watching forklifts move pallets of food that would end up in restaurants across the city. Evans stood beside her, pointing at routes on a laminated map, explaining the logic of delivery zones, peak hours, and waste windows. Most surplus happens between 8 and 10 p.m., he said. After dinner rush, before close. That's when unsold inventory becomes a liability. He traced a line from the dock to a cluster of stores downtown. Right now, most of it goes to dumpsters. We're going to change that. Camilla took notes on a phone Evans had given her. New, still in the box, with a data plan she didn't have to ration. She wrote down everything. Surplus window, route efficiency, cold chain integrity. Words that felt too big for her mouth but were starting to make sense in her head. The training was relentless. Policy drafting sessions with social workers who talked about dignity language and trauma-informed service. Route optimization meetings with logistics managers who showed her how a single wrong turn could waste an hour and a tank of gas. Late nights in conference rooms, sketching protocols for how staff should greet someone who walked in hungry, how to offer without interrogating, how to make a hot meal feel like hospitality instead of charity. 2 weeks in, Camilla designed the emblem. It was small, subtle, a simple decal for storefront windows, an open circle with a fork and a water droplet inside. No words. Just a quiet promise. A hot item and water are always available here. No questions asked. Evans loved it. Jonas said it looked unfinished. That's the point, Camilla said. It's not supposed to scream. It's supposed to whisper. They launched the pilot program with 5 stores. Naya's McDonald's was the first to sign on. Camilla spent 3 hours training the staff on the script. Simple, dignified, memorizable. Can I get you something to eat? Water's always free, and we've got a community meal fund if you need it. That was it. No paperwork, no proof of need. Just a prepaid ledger that Camilla and Evans funded quietly, and a promise that no one would be turned away. The first week, 3 people used it. The second week, 11. By week 3, the emblem was in the window, and people started noticing. Then the pushback started. The franchise owner, a man named Dale Pritchard, called Camilla into his office on a Tuesday afternoon. He was mid-50s, balding, with the look of someone who'd spent his whole life managing risk. I appreciate what you're trying to do, Dale said, leaning back in his chair, but I'm worried about freeloaders. Word gets out we're giving away food, and suddenly every panhandler in a 6-block radius is camping out in my dining room. Camilla kept her voice steady. The data doesn't support that. Naya's location has seen a 12% increase in paying customers since the emblem went up. People want to spend money where they feel good about the values. Or, Dale said, people see a store full of homeless folks and walk out. That hasn't happened yet. Jonah agreed with Dale. He said it in a meeting the next day. in front of Evans and 2 policy consultants. "Camilla's protocols are too loose," Jonah said, tapping his tablet. "No verification system, no cap on frequency. We're asking franchisees to trust that people won't abuse this, and that's not a business model. It's a wish." Camilla felt heat rise in her chest. It's not about trust. It's about removal of barriers. The moment you ask someone to prove they're hungry, you've already failed. And the moment someone takes advantage, the whole program collapses. Evans held up a hand. "Let's table this. Camilla, keep refining. Jonah, pull comparison data from control stores. We'll revisit in 2 weeks." But 2 weeks didn't matter, because 3 days later, everything went sideways. Camilla was doing a field check at a pilot location on the south side when she saw it. A teenage boy, maybe 16, standing at the counter, thin, hoodie pulled low, hands shoved deep in his pockets. The manager, a woman Camilla didn't recognize, was shaking her head. "I said no. You were here yesterday, and the day before. This isn't a shelter." "I just need—" the boy started. "Out, now, before I call someone." Camilla stepped forward. "Hey, I'm Camilla. I work with the Open Table program." She looked at the manager. "Can I talk to you for a second?" The manager crossed her arms. "Who are you?" Camilla pulled out her badge. "Community director. This store signed on to the pilot. That means if someone asks for food, we provide it. No frequency limits." "That's not what Dale told me." Camilla felt her stomach drop. "What did Dale tell you?" 1 meal per person per week. Otherwise, people take advantage." The boy was already moving toward the door. Head down, shoulders hunched. Camilla caught his arm gently. "Wait, please." She turned back to the manager. "Get him a meal. I'll cover it personally if there's an issue." The manager hesitated, then rang it up. The boy took the tray without making eye contact and disappeared into a corner booth. Camilla logged the incident on her phone. Training gap. Protocol confusion. Manager received contradictory instructions. She called Evans on the way back to the office. "We have a problem." That night, Evans pulled the data. All of it. Sales reports, customer surveys, food waste audits, conflict logs. He spread it across the conference room screen while Camilla, Jonah, and 3 analysts watched. "Stores with the emblem," Evans said, highlighting a column, "have seen a 9% reduction in food waste, a 14% increase in customer traffic, and a 22% drop in reported conflicts." He switched to another chart. Stores without the emblem, control group, saw waste increase by 3%, traffic stay flat, and conflicts rise by 8%. Jonah stared at the screen, said nothing. "The program works," Evans said quietly. "But only if we train consistently. Camilla, I need you to draft a certification process. No store gets the emblem until every staff member can recite the protocol in their sleep." Camilla nodded, exhausted. Done. That night, she went home to the new apartment Evans had secured. 2 bedrooms, heat that worked, windows that didn't rattle. Aunt Vera was asleep on the couch, breathing steady for the first time in months. Her inhaler sat on the side table full. Camilla sat in the kitchen and cried. 2 days later, she went back to the original McDonald's. Same booth where it all started. She ordered coffee, opened her laptop, and started drafting the certification manual. Naya walked over during her break. "You good?" "Getting there." "You know people are talking, right? About what you're doing. They think it's real." Camilla looked up. "It is real." "I know," Naya said, smiling. That's the scary part. Camilla worked until close, then walked home through streets that felt a little less cold. The blog post went live the next morning. Open table or open theater? Billionaire's hunger program looks more like a PR stunt. The article was brutal. It called Evans a poverty tourist. It called Camilla a token hire with no credentials. It included a photo of her wearing the badge, captioned, "Bought virtue or real change." By noon, the post had 40,000 shares. By 3 p.m., a city councilwoman's office had requested a formal review. Camilla's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Emails, messages, reporters asking for comment. Evans called her into his office. Jonah was already there, arms crossed. "This is what I was worried about," Jonah said. Evans ignored him. He looked at Camilla. "How do you want to handle this?" Camilla stared at the blog post on the screen. At her own face, frozen in a moment that was supposed to mean something. "We double down," she said. "We show them the data. We show them the people. We prove it's not theater." Evans nodded slowly. "Then we'd better move fast. The council hearing is in 2 weeks." City Hall smelled like old wood and anxiety. Camilla sat in the front row of the public gallery, hands folded in her lap, trying not to look at the cameras. There were 3 news crews set up along the back wall, their lights making everything feel too bright, too exposed. Beside her, Evans sat perfectly still, his face unreadable. Jonah was 2 rows back, typing something on his phone. Councilwoman Maria Ortiz stood at the podium, shuffling papers. She was mid-40s, sharp-eyed, with the kind of voice that made people sit up straight. "Item 47B," Ortiz said. "Proposed ordinance to adopt open table standards for food surplus routing and dignified service protocols across city contracted food vendors." She looked up. "We'll hear public testimony, followed by committee questions. First speaker, Naya Williams." Naya walked to the microphone in her McDonald's uniform, name tag still pinned to her shirt. She cleared her throat. "My name is Naya Williams. I've worked at the McDonald's on 5th and Morrison for 6 years. Before Open Table, I watched people get turned away almost every day. Sometimes by me, because that's what the manager said to do." Her voice cracked slightly. "After Open Table, I watched a woman cry because someone finally said yes. That's the difference. It's not about free food. It's about being seen." Naya sat down. The gallery was silent. The next speaker was a delivery driver named Marcus Chen. He talked about surplus routes, about how much food used to go straight to dumpsters, about how the new routing system cut waste by 1/3 and got meals to shelters while they were still hot. Then came Robert Hayes, a veteran in his 50s, wearing a jacket with faded military patches. He walked slowly to the microphone, leaning on a cane. "I was turned away from a restaurant 2 years ago," he said. "I had $8. The cheapest thing on the menu was $9. The manager told me to leave before he called the cops. I slept outside that night. It was 31 degrees. He paused. "Last month, I walked into a store with an Open Table emblem. The kid at the register said, 'Can I get you something to eat?' Just like that. No questions. I'm here because that kid treated me like a person." Camilla felt her throat tighten. "Ms. Peters," Ortiz said, "you're up." Camilla stood, legs shaking, and walked to the podium. The microphone was too tall. She adjusted it, and the feedback screeched through the room. Someone in the back laughed. She took a breath. "My name is Camilla Peters. 6 weeks ago, I had $4 to my name. I split my last meal with a stranger because I knew what hunger felt like. And I couldn't watch someone else feel it while I had something to give. She looked at the council members. OpenTable isn't charity, it's infrastructure. We've equipped 19 stores with training, surplus routing, and prepaid meal funds. In 8 weeks, we've served 1,147 meals, reduced food waste by 34%, and decreased service conflicts by 41%. Stores with the emblem report higher customer satisfaction and repeat traffic. This isn't a handout, it's a redesign. Councilman Davis, a silver-haired man in the center, leaned into his microphone. Ms. Peters, what's your background in public policy? I don't have one. Food service management? No, sir. So you're telling this committee that a program designed by someone with no relevant credentials should become city policy? Camilla felt the room tilt. I'm telling you that the people who designed the current system have credentials, and the current system is failing. I'm offering something different. Before Davis could respond, a voice cut through the room. Point of order. A man stood in the back, mid-30s, beard, holding a phone. I'm Derek Lansing, editor of City Pulse. I'd like to submit evidence for the record. Ortiz frowned. This isn't a trial, Mr. Lansing. It's public testimony. I have a right to speak. Ortiz sighed. Fine. 2 minutes. Lansing walked to the front, connected his phone to the projection screen. A video appeared. Camilla in the conference room. Evans handing her the badge, the two of them shaking hands. This, Lansing said, is the moment Camilla Peters was hired. Not elected. Not selected through any transparent process. Hired by a billionaire who's using poverty as a branding opportunity. He froze the frame on Camilla's face. She looked stunned, overwhelmed. This isn't leadership. It's bought virtue. Evans Mark wants to control the narrative around hunger so people forget his company's trucks were involved in a man's death. And Ms. Peters here, she's the face that makes it look real. The room erupted. Reporters started shouting questions. Cameras swiveled toward Camilla. Ortiz banged her gavel, but the noise swallowed it. Camilla stood frozen at the podium, the projection of her own face staring back at her, and felt everything collapse. She didn't remember walking out. Didn't remember getting to the stairwell. She just found herself sitting on the cold concrete steps, head in her hands, trying to breathe. The door opened. Evans sat down beside her. I should step down, Camilla said. I'm the problem. If I leave, maybe the program survives. If you leave, the program dies. You heard him. I'm a token. A PR move. Maybe he's right. Evans was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice low and steady. My brother's name was Daniel. He was homeless for 3 years, mental illness, addiction. He couldn't hold down work, couldn't stay in shelters. I tried to help, sent money, set up housing. He'd disappear for months. Evans stared at the wall. 2 years ago, he walked into a diner at 11 p.m., cold night. He asked for coffee, anything warm. The manager called the cops, said he was loitering. They escorted him out. His voice cracked. They found him the next morning in an alley 6 blocks away. Hypothermia. Camilla looked at him, her chest aching. I went undercover because I wanted to see how many Daniels were out there, Evans said. How many people were being turned away, treated like criminals for being cold and hungry. And then I met you. And you did what no one did for my brother. You saw someone in need, and you acted. He turned to face her. This isn't bought virtue, Camilla. This is the only thing that's ever felt real. Camilla wiped her eyes. Lansing's not wrong, though. The optics are bad. I don't have credentials. I don't have... You have something better. You have proof. Evans stood, offered his hand. So let's give it to them. They walked back into the hearing room together. Ortiz was mid-sentence, trying to restore order. She stopped when she saw Camilla approach the podium. "Councilwoman," Camilla said, her voice steadier now, "Mr. Lansing is right. I was hired, not elected. And that badge I'm wearing? It's not a trophy. It's a responsibility I carry every single day." She looked at the council members. "If the concern is transparency, then let's make this transparent. Open Table will establish an independent oversight board. Community members, not executives. We'll implement anonymous voucher pools so no one's identity is tracked. And we'll publish quarterly audits, every meal served, every dollar spent, every outcome measured." Jonah stood up in the back. "Camilla, we haven't discussed—" "I'm discussing it now." She didn't look away from the council. "This program only works if people trust it. So let's earn that trust." Ortiz leaned back in her chair, studying Camilla. "And if the data doesn't support continuation, then we shut it down." The room went quiet. Councilman Davis tapped his pen against his notepad. "I'll be honest, Ms. Peters. I came in here ready to vote no. But you just gave me a reason to think twice." He looked at Ortiz. "I move to advance this to full council with the transparency provisions Ms. Peters outlined." "Second," said another council member. Ortiz nodded. "All in favor?" 5 hands went up. 2 abstentions. None opposed. Motion carries. Ordinance advances to full council vote in 6 weeks. Ortiz banged the gavel. "We'll expect preliminary audit data before then." Camilla exhaled. 6 weeks. 1 large-scale demo. 1 chance to prove it wasn't theater. Evans met her at the door. "You just committed us to a month and a half of impossible work." "I know." He smiled. "Good. Let's get started." The city didn't sleep the night before the demo. Camilla stood in the operations center, a converted warehouse Evans had rented for the week, watching screens display real-time data from 43 stores across 6 districts. Surplus pickup routes glowed green on the map. Staff check-ins pinged every 15 minutes. The emblem decals had gone up at 6 p.m., and by 8 p.m., the first test meals were being logged. Jonah stood at the main console, coordinating drivers via headset. "Route 7, you're 10 minutes behind. Adjust for traffic on Morrison." He glanced at Camilla. "Your protocols better hold." "They will," Camilla said, though her hands were shaking. Naya's voice crackled through the radio. "First transaction logged at 5th and Morrison. The customer asked for a meal. Staff followed the script. No issues." Camilla exhaled. 1 down. Hundreds to go. By midnight, the data was undeniable. Refusals, down 61% from baseline. Conflict reports, 0. Meals served, 127. Food waste diverted, 840 pounds. Customer sentiment surveys, pulled in real time from receipt codes, showed an 89% approval rate. Evans walked over, coffee in hand. "It's working." "It's one night," Camilla said. "It's proof." The demo ran for 72 hours. By Sunday night, the dashboard showed 1,104 meals served, waste reduced by 52%, and not a single escalation serious enough to require security. 3 stores reported increased walk-in traffic. 2 franchise owners called asking how to join. Monday morning, the full city council convened. Camilla sat in the same gallery seat, but this time she wasn't shaking. She'd submitted the audit data, every transaction, Every route, every survey response. Independent reviewers had verified it. The Transparency Board had signed off. Councilwoman Ortiz stood at the podium. "We've reviewed the data from OpenTable's citywide demonstration. The results speak for themselves." She looked at the council. "I move to adopt the OpenTable Ordinance as city policy with the following terms: Independent Oversight Board, Anonymous Voucher System, and Quarterly Public Audits." Councilman Davis nodded. "I'll second that. And I'll admit I was wrong about Ms. Peters. She's proven this isn't theater. It's infrastructure that works." The vote was called. 9 in favor, 2 opposed, 1 abstention. Ortiz banged the gavel. "The OpenTable Ordinance is now city policy. Stores contracting with the city must comply with surplus routing and dignified service standards within 90 days. The gallery erupted in applause. Naya was crying. Marcus Chen stood up and clapped until his hands hurt. Camilla sat frozen, unable to process that it was real. Evans leaned over. "You did it!" "We did it," Camilla whispered. That afternoon, Evans called Camilla into his office. Jonah was already there, standing by the window. "Sit," Evans said. Camilla sat, exhausted, still riding the adrenaline from the morning. Evans slid a folder across the desk. "This is a contract. Founding Community Director, permanent position, salary, benefits, and a succession pathway to run the foundation once we establish 501c3 status." He paused. "You've earned this 10 times over." Camilla opened the folder, stared at the numbers. It was more money than she'd ever imagined making. Enough to take care of Aunt Vera. Enough to stop counting coins. "There's one more thing," Evans said. He pulled out another document. "A seat on the board. Equal vote on every major decision. You won't work for me, Camilla. You'll work with me." Jonah cleared his throat. "For what it's worth, I was wrong about you." He extended his hand. "You've got instincts I don't, and the data backs them up. I'm glad you're staying." Camilla shook his hand, and for the first time, Jonah smiled. "Welcome to the long haul," he said. 3 days later, Camilla found herself back at the McDonald's on 5th and Morrison. Same booth, same view of the counter. The emblem decal was in the window now, small and subtle, catching the afternoon light. She ordered coffee and sat down with her laptop, reviewing applications for the oversight board. The program was scaling faster than she'd anticipated. 12 new stores had signed on. 2 other cities had reached out, asking for consultation. She was halfway through an email when she noticed her. A young woman, maybe 25, standing at the counter with a toddler on her hip. The woman was counting money, 5 crumpled dollar bills spread across her palm, her lips moving as she did the math. The toddler was crying softly, rubbing his eyes. Camilla's chest tightened. She knew that look. The way the woman's shoulders hunched, the way she glanced around to see if anyone was watching. The math that didn't add up. The choice that shouldn't have to be a choice. Camilla stood, walked to the counter, and ordered a meal. Large fries, 2 burgers, juice box, apple slices. The cashier rang it up, slid the receipt across. Camilla took the tray and walked over to the woman. "Excuse me," Camilla said gently. The woman looked up, startled. Camilla set the tray on the counter beside her. "Eat first. Figure out the rest after." The woman stared at her, eyes filling with tears. "I can't." "You can. Please." The toddler reached for the fries. The woman's hands were shaking as she took the tray. "What?" she whispered. Camilla smiled. "Because I know what empty feels like." The woman nodded, unable to speak, and carried the tray to a booth. Camilla watched her sit down, watched the toddler eat, watched the woman close her eyes and take a breath, like she'd been holding it for days. Naya appeared beside Camilla, wiping down the counter. "You just did what you did a year ago." "I know. Except now there's a system behind it." Camilla looked at the emblem in the window. "Yeah, now there's a system." She went back to her booth, back to her laptop, but she couldn't focus. She kept glancing over at the woman and the toddler, at the way the woman's shoulders had finally relaxed. Camilla pulled out her phone and texted Evans. "Just saw it work. Not the data. The actual moment. It's real." He texted back immediately, "That's why we do this." Camilla looked down at the coins in her pocket. The $4 she'd kept from that first day, wrapped in a rubber band, a reminder of how close she'd been to losing everything. She pulled them out, turned them over in her hand. They didn't sound like pebbles anymore. They didn't sound like something falling into a dry well, disappearing into nothing. They sounded like keys, keys to a door she'd opened, a door other people could walk through now, a door that led somewhere warm, somewhere safe, somewhere people didn't have to choose between eating and surviving. Camilla put the coins back in her pocket and went back to work. There were more doors to open, more systems to build, more people counting crumpled bills at counters, trying to do math that shouldn't be this hard. But now, Camilla had something she didn't have before. She had a system. She had a team. She had proof. And she had a simple truth she could offer anyone who walked through the door hungry and afraid. Eat first. We'll figure out the rest together. 1 year later, OpenTable operated in 43 cities. The emblem appeared in 2,400 store windows. Camilla testified before Congress. Aunt Vera's breathing was steady, and in a small McDonald's on 5th and Morrison, a booth in the corner became a quiet legend. The place where a woman with $4.12 changed the way a city thought about hunger. The coins still sat in Camilla's pocket. She carried them everywhere. Not as a reminder of what she'd lost, but as a reminder of what she'd found.